Picture four men in dresses, not Halloween, not a joke. John Deacon in a miniskirt, Roger Taylor in a wig, Brian May in a floral blouse, Freddie Mercury in a tight black skirt, a brunette wig, and a vacuum cleaner. Completely committed, not a hint of embarrassment between them. They filmed it. They sent the video to America. America looked at it. America said no. MTV banned it, refused to play it. The official reason, too controversial, which in 1984 was a polite way of saying four British men in dresses, was not something the network was prepared to put in front of its audience. When Freddie heard the decision, he went quiet for a moment. Then he said he didn't need America. He meant it. And then 30 years later, America came to him, slowly, expensively, 30 years too late, but it came. This is that story. You have to understand what I Want to Break Free actually was to understand why the band was so perfectly wrong. It is a song about the exhaustion of pretending, about the weight of maintaining a version of yourself that the world has decided it needs you to be, about the particular relief of imagining what it would feel like to put that down, just for a moment, and breathe. John Deacon wrote it. He wrote it quickly, the way the best songs get written, not constructed, but arrived at. The song didn't announce itself or arrive with a manifesto. It arrived the way honest things arrive. Quietly, completely, with no apology for what it was. The video took the song's emotional core and made it physical and specific and slightly absurd and completely sincere. Four men in a terraced house living out the domestic comedy of a British soap opera, fully committed, not a wink at the camera, not a single moment of apology anywhere. In Britain, they understood immediately. The video was enormous. The crowd got the joke and got the love and got the thing underneath the joke that was not a joke at all. In America, the network executives looked at it and saw men in dresses. They made their decision without getting as far as the understanding part. To be fair to MTV, and I say this through gritted teeth, 1984 America was not the place you wanted to be if you were anything other than what it had decided was normal. 3 years into the Reagan administration, culture wars running hot, congressional hearings about what rock music was doing to the nation's youth, rock music under pressure from the Parents Music Resource Center, from advertisers, from a broader social anxiety about what the culture was becoming. In this context, a music video with four men in women's clothing had consequences attached, the kind of noise that a cable network still finding its footing did not want. MTV made the calculation. They chose the safe side. What they didn't calculate was what they were actually choosing to ban. Not the clothing, not the joke, not four British men having fun with the freedom to be ridiculous. The band behind the video, one of the greatest rock bands in the world at the peak of their powers. A frontman in the middle of redefining what a performer was allowed to be. That's what they banned. And they didn't know it. They didn't know it. When Freddie Mercury said he didn't need America, he wasn't performing defiance. He was reading a spreadsheet. By 1984, Queen had sold out stadiums across Europe, South America, Japan, and Australia. They had played to 300,000 people in Argentina on a single night. They had been to Japan so many times and been received there with such intensity that Freddie Mercury described it as the closest thing to unconditional love he had ever felt from an audience. The map of Queen's world did not require America. Britain understood the video because Britain had the cultural language to read it, the Coronation Street parody, the specific British tradition of comedy that carries its real meaning underneath the joke. America looked at the same image and stopped at the surface. What they saw was four men in dresses. What they didn't see was everything underneath. When Freddie said he didn't need them, he was not wounded. He was accurate, and he moved on. What happened after the ban was not a press release. It was quieter than that and more final. Queen stopped touring America. The 1982 Hot Space Tour had been their last major American run of tour that hadn't gone well, partly because the funk-influenced album confused an audience expecting something different. After 1982, no American tour. After the ban in 1984, even less reason to schedule one. Freddie took the energy that might have gone into cracking America and spent it somewhere else. South American shows that became legend, 300,000 people in a field in Buenos Aires who knew every word of every song. European stadium tours, and Live Aid in 1985, where he stood at Wembley and did 20 minutes that every person who was there describes the same way, using the same words. The greatest live rock performance they ever witnessed. He didn't sulk. He didn't nurse a wound. He decided where his energy was worth spending. He spent it. What he built with that energy made the question of what MTV thought of him feel, from the distance of 30 years, genuinely small. Here is what America missed. July 1985. Wembley Stadium. Queen had 20 minutes. Freddie Mercury walked to the microphone. Within 30 seconds, 72,000 people were his, not enthusiastic his. He played them like an instrument. He pointed and they moved. He held a note and they held their breath. He asked them for a sound and 72,000 people produced it in perfect, exact unison. Bob Geldof watched from the wings and has described it the same way every time in the years since. David Bowie said the same. Every musician who was there said the same thing. Independently, in their own words, they had never seen anything like it. America watched it on television. But America had been told 1 year earlier that this performer was too controversial for its screens. The performers at Live Aid stood in the wings and watched 20 minutes that would be talked about for decades. America watched on a screen, from a distance. It is not the same thing. And the American fans who loved this music knew it wasn't the same thing. That knowing sat with them for 30 years. America had been told, too controversial. Here is what that actually meant for the fans. The American Queen fans of 1984 who bought the records, who heard I Want to Break Free on the radio and turned it up, who had seen the Hot Space Tour in 1982, or wished they could, who were waiting in 1984 and 1985 and 1986, for the next tour, for the next visit, for the chance to be in a room where Freddie Mercury was performing. They waited. The tour never came. Not because the band didn't exist, not because the music wasn't there, because a decision had been made by other people, for other people's reasons. The music was on the radio, the records were in every shop. But the radio is not a room, the record is not the show. And for the American Queen fans of the mid-1980s, the gap between what the music was and what they were being allowed to experience of it was a gap that nobody acknowledged, that nobody apologized for. The fans absorbed the cost. They never got to see the show. That is the human center of this story, not the network, the people who wanted something and were told they couldn't have it. Freddie Mercury died on November 24, 1991. 3 weeks later, Bohemian Rhapsody entered the American charts for the second time. The first time was 1975. This time, 17 years later, it went to number 2. It sold more copies in America in December 1991 than it had in 1975. The outpouring was global and genuine and real. In America, it was real too, but for some of the people doing the grieving, it carried something extra. The grief of people who had loved the music without being given the full measure of what the music contained, who had heard it on the radio and bought the records but had not seen the shows, not been in the rooms, not had the experience of being in the presence of what Freddie Mercury could do to a crowd. They understood in November 1991 that the waiting was over in a way that was not the ending they had expected. They never got to see the show. They knew it. They will always know it. In 2018, the Bohemian Rhapsody film was released. Critics noted the inaccuracies. None of that mattered to the audience. The film made $810 million globally. In America, it opened at number 1 and stayed in the top 10 for weeks. Queen's streaming numbers went vertical, and suddenly there were 20-year-olds in America discovering Freddie Mercury for the first time, watching the Wembley footage, listening to the albums, sitting up in the middle of the night with headphones in and thinking, where has this been? It had been right there. It had always been right there. They just weren't given it. When they finally were, they responded the way every audience in every other country had always responded. Complete, immediate, recognition, as if the recognition had been waiting in them all along, and the music had simply unlocked it. Freddie Mercury did not see any of this. He died in 1991. He did not see the streaming numbers. He did not see the concert footage go viral on platforms that didn't exist when he died. He did not see the teenagers in 2018 discovering Bohemian Rhapsody and responding with the same shock the original 1975 audience had felt. He said he didn't need America. He meant it. But he understood in the way people who are genuinely certain about their work always understand that the work would outlast the decisions made about it. He would not be here to see it, but the work would be. He would not have been surprised by the 2018 numbers. He had built his career on the understanding that work of genuine quality does not require approval to exist, that the work itself is the argument, and the argument eventually reaches its own verdict, regardless of what any institution decided. The ban was an institution's decision. The verdict was the audience's Bohemian Rhapsody. I want to break free. Still here. Still playing. Still here. Still playing. This is the thing about banning something genuinely extraordinary. You cannot ban it for long. You can delay it. You can make a whole generation wait longer than they should have, but the work does not care about the ban. It does not diminish because a network executive in 1984 decided it was too controversial. It waits. Bohemian Rhapsody waited 17 years to reach #2 in America. I Want to Break Free, the specific video, the 4 men in dresses, the vacuum cleaner is still handled carefully by American mainstream television, even now, but the music is everywhere. The legacy is everywhere. The band felt like a wall in 1984. From the distance of 30 years, it looks like a speed bump on a road that was always going to lead somewhere. There is an irony buried deep in this story that deserves a moment. I Want to Break Free was written by Deacon. Deacon, the most private member of Queen, who left the music industry after Freddie died and never came back, who gives no interviews, who attends no events, who has spent 30 years in a silence so complete it makes other silences look casual. The most private man in the band wrote the song about breaking free. The song that got banned in America for being too free. The song that a generation of American fans was kept from by a decision made by people afraid of the specific freedom the song was celebrating. Deacon wrote it and moved on without a word of complaint, without a press release, without a single public comment on what happened to the song he wrote. He has never commented on the ban. He has never commented on anything. But by writing what he wrote, he left behind the clearest possible statement about what happens when you try to contain something that does not want to be contained. You can ban a video. You cannot ban the feeling the video came from. I want to talk about the American fans, because this story gets told as a dispute between a band and a network. But there is another version. The one that belongs to the people who had no say in any of the decisions. The American Queen fans of 1984 who heard I Want to Break Free on the radio and loved it, who bought the records, who had seen the Hot Space Tour in 1982, or wished they could, who were waiting in 1984 and 1985 and 1986 for the next visit, for the chance to be in a room where Freddie Mercury was performing. They waited. The tour never came. Then in 1991, they heard the news whenever it reached them and understood that the waiting was over in a way that was not the ending they had expected. The decision had been made by other people. The fans absorbed the cost. That cost is the human center of this story, not the ban, not the network, the people who wanted something and were told they couldn't have it. Right to want it all along. In 2018, a 20-year-old in a cinema in Ohio or Texas or California watched Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time, felt the shock of encountering something enormous. That 20-year-old was having an experience that a 34-year-old in the same city had been prevented from having in 1984. The gatekeepers are gone. The executives who made the decision in 1984 have retired or died or moved on. And the 20-year-old in the cinema is watching Freddie Mercury at Wembley and feeling exactly what the crowd felt in 1985, that specific, overwhelming, completely undeniable recognition of something that is simply in a class by itself. That is what the ban was protecting America from. That recognition. The ban failed. It was always going to fail. The only question was how long it would take. 30 years. Freddie Mercury said he didn't need America. He was right. He built one of the greatest careers in the history of music without it. He played Argentina and Japan and Wembley and Live Aid and Knebworth. He made the miracle and Innuendo and the show must go on. He did all of it without America's permission and without America's approval. MTV banned the video. He shrugged. He moved on. He never wasted another hour on the question, and 30 years later, America came to him. Through a film, through streaming numbers, through 20-year-olds discovering Bohemian Rhapsody at 2 in the morning and sitting up straight. They found it. It had been right there, always right there, just not given. When they finally got it, they understood immediately. The way audiences always understand, complete and immediate recognition. Freddie Mercury was right. He didn't need them. They needed him.